Amenhotep II's tomb, number 22, in the Western Valley, also known as the Valley of the Monkeys Cemetery. The French engineers Edouard de Villars du Terrail and Prosper Jalloy, who were part of the scientific expedition that accompanied Napoleon Bonaparte when he conquered Egypt in 1799, found the tomb of King Amenhotep III, which is regarded as one of the oldest royal tombs ever found. Naturally, since the ancient Egyptian language had not yet been deciphered, they were unable to identify the tomb's owner and left us with a simplified architectural description of its scenes. However, when Champollion visited the tomb in 1829, he was able to identify the owner because he had deciphered the ancient Egyptian language in 1822. We reach via the Western Valley, a barren region devoid of both crops and water, in order to arrive at the tomb. The road that takes us there is the same one that leads to the Valley of the Kings, but 360 meters before we get to the main valley, there is an alternative route to the Western Valley. The majority of the texts and scenes on this tomb are engraved in the mountain's rock and are in a poor state of preservation. Because of an engraving of monkeys on one of the walls of King I's tomb, number 23, in the same cemetery, the inhabitants of Luxor refer to this tomb as the Cemetery of the Monkeys. This scene is a portion of the opening hour of the ancient Egyptian book called Amenhotep, or What is in the Netherworld. He and Comte thinks it's probable that the tomb was abandoned after being looted in the 20th and 21st dynasties. It's also probable that at this time, the king's mummy was moved from his tomb to Amenhotep II's, which was previously mentioned. The tomb is made up of 3 axes, and although he ruled for a long time, most of the scenes inside were probably not finished in time. It is noteworthy that the scenes in the burial chamber, the chamber that leads to it, and the walls above the well are all fully completed in the tomb. They are also simple to follow because they are drawn in red ink on parts of the tomb's walls, without black ink corrections, and don't appear to have had enough time to be colored. Today's tomb raiders are skilled in cutting and stealing scenes that show the king's face or head. It is probable that some people who are interested in ancient Egyptian antiquities owe these significant scenes as personal antiques rather than as a part of the country's legacy that needs to be not only researched but also taught. The tomb faces southeast from the entrance to the 2-pillared room, then turns northeast until it reaches the burial chamber, after which it turns southeast once more. Starting from a descending stairway at the entrance of the tomb, we find 2 niches on either side of a passageway that leads to a room with a floor shaped like a staircase. There are no scenes in any of the preceding corridors when we reach this one. Once we arrive at the well, we must take note of the colored and drawn scenes that adorn the top of the well chamber's walls. These scenes depict the king and his soul or spirit, which has taken the form of the king and can be distinguished from the king by the Ka sign above its head. Next, there are scenes showing the king receiving the symbol for life, or Hang, from Anubis, the goddess of the West Amenhotep, and Osiris. Additionally, the king and his soul or spirit can be seen on the right side, in front of the goddess Nut who is greeting him as Nyny in the ancient Egyptian language. He is also depicted alongside the gods, Anubis, Imnet, the goddess of the West, and Osiris. After that, the first axis ends and the second axis begins in a room with 2 pillars. The room is devoid of scenes and texts, and contains a descending stairway that goes to a corridor that ends with a steep staircase that leads to the room that precedes the burial chamber. The fact that each staircase has 16 steps is fascinating to know. The various scenes on the walls of the next chamber set them apart. These scenes are very comparable to what we saw at the top of the well chamber's walls. The scenes here show the king, the goddesses Hathor and Nut, the goddess of the West Imnet, and the deity Osiris. Additionally, it is noted that a recent graffiti bears the name Yati 1834 that is scrawled on the interior's right wall. The third axis then starts at the burial chamber, where 6 pillars are arranged in 2 rows. In addition, it has 7 side chambers of varying sizes, with 3 on the left and 2 on the right. 2 further chambers are accessible by an entrance at the end of the burial chamber. It's also possible to see the sarcophagus, whose lid has since been destroyed, in the depression that we can access by a tiny staircase that sits between the 5th and 6th pillars. Scenes and passages from the ancient Egyptian book Amenhotep, which is titled What is in the Netherworld, can be seen on the walls of the burial chamber. Additionally, we discover here for the last time the characteristic practice of the open and unfolded papyrus, which we have previously seen in the tombs of Amenhotep II and Thutmose III. The pillar facades in this burial chamber depict the king's interactions with the gods and goddesses of the netherworld, including Osiris, Anubis, Hathor, and the goddess of the west, Amenhotep.